The internet began many, many years ago with just a few scientists from all over the world who connected just to share their research. And today it's developed into something where over 1.5 billion people in the world are connecting through this medium, communicating in all sorts of ways, sharing all kinds of information. So I just wanted to start off generally with this question of how does the internet, how do all these people use the internet today? How does that fit with the general development of humanity?
In that development, we've reached a state where we feel interconnected all around the globe. Kind of like the butterfly effect, this process of globalization, an international, integral globe that incorporates all the countries. And the purpose of nature is that we will become actually interconnected and interdependent. This is something that the law of nature is pushing us to. We see that according to how man develops and how human civilization develops, the means of communication develop in the fastest way. Now, the internet, it only exists for 20 years, but we're almost unable to live without it now. I remember when the fax came out for the first time, and for the first time you were able to fax something to a person. People thought this was the invention of the century. What else can you need? And all of a sudden, this internet provides you with an infinite resource of information, and the speed becomes faster and faster, to the point that you don't feel that there's any suspense, any delay. Everything is at your service. And this is all showing people that we are in need for connection between us. On the one hand, nature is pushing us to connect with each other, on the one hand, but on the other hand, we're also realizing that we can't find a good connection between us. We can't, and that's a problem. That's the other side of the coin.
You mentioned the connections between us. Do you think the internet has played a role in helping create connections between us improve?
First of all, if we develop something in technology, it doesn't happen by chance. It stems from our nature. The means of communication is something, is a realm that is constantly developing, and it is the major thing for us. Whether it's television all around the globe, or satellite TV, for instance, and so on. Those things are especially developing, and it is obvious that our nature pushes us to this development. The question is, are we really creating the right kind of connection between us? Or, although our nature pushes us to develop the connection between us, and according to nature's plan, we must become more connected and reach some uniform, united global entity in which we're all interconnected. But what is the kind of connection we should have with each other? That's the question.
Do you think that the internet is actually something part of nature? The internet, like technology, the way people connect through it, it's part of nature?
Yes, of course. We are adding what we lack by nature with our development, so to speak. In other words, we think that the artificial connection can fulfill what's missing within us, the inner connection between us, but it won't happen. We can continue creating better cellular phones or expanding the net and create more forms of communication, or through the TV. We are drawn towards a constant connection between everyone, and this is where technology develops. And this is where the international industry develops. It's as if we're developing towards a global culture now. Even when you move from country to country, you can see that things start to become similar. Unlike how it was 100 or 200 years ago, if you would be in Europe and then in America, you would see very big differences. Today, it seems like people become similar, the food becomes similar, the education becomes similar, the culture, even the languages are starting to be overshadowed by English as an international language. So it turns out that the connection between us must happen. But probably it's not the technological level where we are really fulfilling the need for connection. The tendency towards connection comes to us by nature, but the internet is not the tool that will provide us with the right connection. Eventually, we will have to find a more inner connection between us. And here, the cellular phones or the internet won't help us. Those means of communication will also move to a new level, and we will begin to realize that we need a more emotional, internal connection with each other, sort of a mental connection with each other, understanding each other better, and so on. And all this network of connections that we're building now isn't really something that can fulfill us, that can fulfill our deficit for real connection between people.
I'm going to ask about this internal connection you're talking about. Like, I just think of myself right now. Let's say 10 years ago, when the internet still wasn't so developed, I had, let's say, 5 people who I called really my friends, you know, like people I'm close to. You talk with them in depth about something. They can help you in certain situations, you help them. And maybe around them, maybe up to another 50 people who are kind of like these acquaintances. And today, on the internet, I have something like 2,000 people who are called my friends through these social networks like Facebook and MySpace. And I barely know any of them, and
Right.
I just find out what they're doing all the time, but I don't really, I see a little photo of them. I don't really feel like they're the same kind of friends as I had, like these 5 good friends.
Unlike the friends you had before.
Is that friendship that I'm talking about, say, between these 5 friends, is that more of this internal connection you're talking about, or is it something else?
This is exactly what I'm trying to say, actually, that our technological development that we are building between people, which as if allows us to surround the whole world and to connect everyone. Let's say in 10 or 20 years from now, you'll be able to look at a computer screen that shows you everyone in the world, and you can see them day and night and so on. But the heart connection, as you mentioned before, does not exist. And then we will feel that we didn't really benefit by that technology. It's as if we moved our connection to something that is not based on nature. And it looks like humanity has to go through these phases in order to realize that people need inner development. That's what we're missing. And alongside having all the technological and technical ways of communication, the family unit still seems to deteriorate. Parents are less connected to their children and vice versa. Problems between spouses in marriages. It's as if we begin to feel more and more isolated, alienated, and even though we have many more means of communication, they are as if helping us detach from each other. What I think is that we will discover that all those means of communication that we are developing today are actually means to reveal that the true connection between us is missing.
I guess one of the things I'd like to clarify is, would you say that this friendship I was talking about of 10 years ago, before I really got into the internet, would you say that that was a true internal connection, or?
This is not it too. You're saying when you had some individual friends.
Let's just say some friends from school here and there were based on.
Yeah, I understand. Like friendships used to happen before. This is not it too. What I'm trying to say is that nature, the way I see it from the wisdom of Kabbalah, nature is leading us to such a deep, real, profound connection between us that we are as if as one man in one heart, that eventually we will connect our desires, our aspirations, our hearts. When we will begin to realize that we are interdependent, not just in connections of commerce and trade and culture and education, but that humanity is interdependent to the point that we must be like one family. We are reaching a state, even according to researches, that the dependency of people on each other will only grow, not just in terms of the butterfly effect, but it will become more and more profound. We will realize that just like in one body, where all the organs are dependent upon each other, and by their harmonious collective work, they build the healthy body and maintain the well-being of the body, in the same way, we humans, if we want to be connected to each other, because otherwise we will not be able to survive, we will then look for the real, natural connection between us. And all the phases that we're going through now in our development, where we are developing that external type of connection through the cellular phones, the TVs, the Internet, we will reveal that this type of connection cannot replace the interconnection between us, and it will only show us the need for the interconnection between us. And of course, we will go back to something like you had with your friends in the past, but much stronger than that. You could still have millions of friends. In the past, you only had 3 or 4 good friends. We will come to such a necessity that man will have to be connected to the whole world. And then the means of communication can help us become connected, but first we have to be connected in our hearts.